We're gonna talk about toxic today. Good morning, guys. Welcome back to my channel. If it's your first time here, my name is Mari, and if you're already a subscriber, thank you so much for subscribing to my channel. Stop calling people toxic. So let's get into it. Okay, let's get into it before we get out of here. Yeah. Have you guys noticed that the word toxic has become very popular? Especially here in the YouTube comments, it's always people like fighting with each other, attacking each other, and then they start labeling each other. Yeah, you know what I mean, right? And I'm 100% sure it's not just here in the YouTube comments. In a way, I feel like the word toxic has become toxic. Let's talk about it. A buzzword is a word or phrase new or already existing that becomes popular for a period of time. Buzzwords often derive from technical terms, yet often have much of the original technical meaning removed through fashionable use, being simply used to impress others. Do you know where I'm going with this? Let me take you. Let's go. Some buzzwords that you may see or hear being used a lot in casual conversations are narcissistic, triggered, bipolar, gaslighting, toxic. Yeah, toxic. Alright, this increase of awareness with mental health disorders, it's good. I love it. I love that there's more information about mental health because this is going to help us destigmatize and popularize mental health, you know? We also use these terms to help us identify and label something that is healthy and something that's unhealthy. That's because people exist. Of course people exist. But toxic people exist. They do. I've met some, I've known some, and I've been one. But there's also a downside to this. Implementing psychology terms or terminology into everyday conversations kind of sometimes dilutes the meaning of the word, while simultaneously perpetuating stigma, stereotypes, and misinformation, which is happening a lot. Just because someone doesn't agree with you, that doesn't make them toxic. Not everyone that's labeled, oh my god, that hurt. Not everyone that's labeled toxic is toxic. And there's countless of videos already talking about toxic, like toxic people to avoid, or how to spot someone toxic in your life. And those videos are great, you know, they are there to inform us what behaviors are actually toxic. That way we just don't go around labeling people, you're toxic, you're a narcissist, just because they're being jerks. Let's talk about this. Again, I'm not saying toxic people don't exist, because they do, and I'm not here to deny the pain that people inflict on others. Here I have a definition of the word toxic from the website WebMD that slightly touches on something important that I want to talk about. As you know, and if you don't know, that's okay, let me share this cheat code with you about humans. How people treat you is a reflection of how they feel about themselves. And you probably have heard this before, but it's true. I'm not lying. I'm here spitting facts for you. The way we behave and our perspective comes from our personal experience and our personal traumas. It comes binding together and it becomes what we put out into the world and what we decide to tuck in. Hear me out. I'm not saying to go out there and analyze other people or analyze the next person who is being a jerk or who is being toxic, because then there will be this new need to analyze and label other people, which, you know, social media has become a place full of people that can spot toxic behaviors in everyone but themselves. So why don't we talk about us? Because we have been toxic before. And I know that's not something good. Doesn't feel good to admit that. It doesn't. But we're human. Let's remember that we're human, and it's possible and it's gonna happen that we will behave in that way. Let's remember that it takes two to tango, and I haven't been tangled before. And I like to call that mirror bingo, because we mirror our emotional state, we mirror, project, and then we get bingo when we become aware. Yeah. Did I just make that up? For sure. Obviously, yes, I did. So, you want to learn about toxic? Okay. If you have someone who is being toxic, you cannot control them or their behaviors, but we can control our responses and our behaviors when we work through our own triggers. Believe it or not, please believe this, do it. We are biased because oftentimes we tend to see our personal behaviors as understandable and reasonable, and then we tend to see the other person's behavior as unreasonable and purposeful. Yeah, purposeful. All that, again, it's human, but it's not right, but it's human. But for example, well, I only said this because you call my fish stinky. Yeah. Which is why it's good to go to therapy and change that perspective. Honestly, the world doesn't need more critics anymore. We got Rotten Tomatoes for that. We need more self-awareness. Isn't that nice? It is. So instead of shaming someone or belittling them because of their traumas and their responses, we can get curious about them. And most importantly, we can become more aware of ourselves, of our own bias. We come from a society, the nation of America. That's me because I'm in the US. I don't know where you are, but wherever you are, I think you're pretty cool for watching this video, okay? We come from a society where we like to look the other way instead of looking inward. And I get it. It's hard, you know? Like, it's hard for me too. So I just don't know how to do it. Some of us were not modeled how to work through difficult emotions. For example, I remember when I was small, when I would cry, my parents would say something like, "Ahorita te doy algo para que llores." It's Spanish, but it translates to, "I'll give you something to cry for." It's funny, but honestly, trauma. So without knowing how to handle these difficult emotions, we become defensive, we become hostile, or we just shut down. Something that has helped me feel my emotions is see them as not my emotions. They are my emotions because I'm feeling them, but they're not my emotions. They're the human emotions that everyone feels. Knowing all that, this doesn't justify behavior. This doesn't justify the behavior of the person who's being toxic. And most importantly, this doesn't justify our toxic behavior. Because the world doesn't need more critics. It needs more self-awareness. I think we can all agree on that, right? Yeah. Adopting the belief that everyone's doing the best they can given the situation they are. And it's a game changer. If the person's not fully aware of how they're projecting, it's not our job to push them into the light. It's not. We can't help, we care about them. There are things we can do, but it's not our job. Healing is a choice that must be made by the individual, and until that happens, we have choices. We have choices. We have choices. You can have compassion for people and their struggles and their trauma, and you can also have boundaries and take the necessary steps needed to protect yourself from harm and abuse being inflicted upon you by the traumatized person. But most importantly, start paying attention to yourself. Getting triggered is a normal part of the human life. The cool thing is that we can work through our own triggers, and it's like really cool, guys. I'm not painting these emotions or just the whole thing very like happy, because it's not happiness that you feel when you're feeling your emotions. It's not happiness. Like, please take care of yourself and I will take care of me, and subscribe to my channel if you like me. How about that? Let's just do it like that, okay? I'm not mad at McDonald's for getting rid of the chicken wrap site. I'm not. Alright guys, I'm out.